Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out the radio version of the show every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on WDJY 99.1 in Atlanta. We also air on a podcasting network in Los Angeles called the 405 Media. There's a TV version of the show that airs on KMVT 15 in Silicon Valley at 8 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday nights. Both versions of the show air in other states. For these show times, plus past episodes, please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com. I want to invite all of you in the Building the Future community to join me at SOUPEX, the Startup Expo in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, this July 26th, where I'll be the MC. SOUPEX is one of the largest and best startup conferences in the U.S. and the official gathering of the Building the Future community this summer. SOUPEX has cutting-edge content, a cool startup competition, and a half-day forum this year called #WomenForWomen, the largest gathering in the U.S. in 2018 of angel groups, seed funds, and VC funds focused on female founders and female entrepreneurs. For more information, visit www.sup-x.org. I hope to see all my Building the Future friends there. Welcome back to the show. Today we have John Morris. He's the managing partner at Intentional Media. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. It's nice to be building the future with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into all that fun stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Well, thank you. I grew up in a university town, Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay.
And it's where I live now, but I've been a lot of places in between.
Okay. So you went to university. What did you take and what made you take that in university? Was there like a defining moment in your childhood that made you want to take that?
I went to Bucknell University in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And leaving, after I was an athlete, and so I didn't really appreciate what the value of what I was going to learn at university. I was kind of similar to what society had done a little bit. Like you go to university if you can, and your parents want you to get that education. So I didn't. At the moment of going, I didn't have an educational pursuit. I had an experience that I was looking to pursue called college, and I got a lot out of going with that open mind.
Okay, what sport were you big into at the time?
The sport that was created by the American Indians, lacrosse.
Oh, interesting.
And it's back then, there was very few people that played it, but it's grown quite a bit.
Sure. So you get out of university. You've worked at a number of kind of companies up until the stuff you're doing now. Walk us through kind of your career and maybe some career highlights because you've done a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I came out. I had an internship in college that I got an opportunity with Merrill Lynch, and that led to getting a job right out of college at Merrill Lynch, which was then not the largest, one of the largest financial firms.
Sure.
And the job that I got was a training program. It was an 18-month training program that allowed me to rotate to all the different divisions, investment banking and private client and government relations and trading. So that really defined my career because I was able to start with experiencing the landscape of an industry opposed to going into one category. And then through that, there was 12 of us. We were able to kind of choose which direction we wanted. Everyone else went into investment banking, the more capital market side. I was very intimidated by how smart everyone was around me, and I chose to go into the private client side that I could deal with individuals who I would be an expert because of the way the firm I was from, but I wasn't dealing with other institutional experts, and I could really provide value to them. So after a year and a half, married the girl that I met my senior year, and she and I moved to London, and that was the beginning of having my own book of clients for 10 years in London, and then moving to Dubai and managing an office for 4 years in Dubai, and coming back to London and managing the office that I started in, and then coming back to London after 15 years. By then, we had 3 girls in London, 1 in Dubai, and came back to the farmhouse that I grew up in Princeton, bought it from my parents. We moved in, and I was commuting to New York to manage the New York International office, a couple hundred financial advisors, all working with different investors around the world. Then I became chairman of Latin America, running around Latin America and understanding the different cultures of investors, the way I learned the cultures of the Arab investors and the subcontinent. And then my last job at Merrill Lynch after 25 years there was to go into the kitchen, which was to create the product, where before I was more of a waiter serving the clients, or head waiter helping those waiters understand how to market what was on the menu. I'd always been in the front end explaining the menu. Now I was going into the kitchen and being in charge of product, international product, which was to structure all the different things on the menus for all of the offices around the world for Merrill Lynch. And that was my last role at Merrill Lynch before I became an entrepreneur in 2005.
Interesting. So what made you decide to kind of, move away from Merrill Lynch and actually start a company and become an entrepreneur?
I think your show, Building the Future. I had the benefit of learning how things work at Merrill Lynch,
Sure.
And the kind of legacy and status quo of the supply chain of one of the biggest industries in the world, capital markets, and how it gets from a problem to an investor somewhere in the world. But I also saw that the major firms were maybe losing touch with some of the changes that were going on. The need for there was more and more cry for transparency. There was more need for innovation. And at that time, I was seeing the whole industry start to become a little more focused just on the financial structuring of internal bottom line, as opposed to client innovation. I think they're getting back to client innovation now, but I really wanted to be out there innovating, and I thought the best way to do that was to start a new company and start to innovate in financial services.
Okay, interesting. And you did that for kind of a number of years. So kind of walk us through that career up until kind of what you guys are doing with SOCAP in the social capital markets.
Mm-hmm. Kind of 2 chapters. One was creating Clearbrook, founding Clearbrook Global Advisors, which is a platform of asset managers.
Okay.
That is transparent, and also with research on those asset managers serving the institutional market. And that company is still doing great work with the institutional market and kind of the pension advisory side and championing transparency. And then a few of the partners and I spun off to create a wealth management business in 2011 called Snowden Lane Advisors, and that is now at $4 billion in assets. Wow. And it was really to focus on advisors that wanted to work in an independent environment, but have the resources that major firms have, and focus on maybe have a very laser-like focus on their client needs in this more independent advice space. So did that, and we had the benefit of having a large investment from a private equity firm to follow on from the original founders I was really fascinated by that time with social impact investing.
Okay.
And knew that that's what I wanted to do 100% of the time, and really focus on that. So that was 2012, 2013. And so at that moment when the big growth capital came in, I moved on, and my partners are, it's still a fantastic firm, and started looking at helping companies that have real strong values and want to create economic value from their core values. And one of those companies was SOCAP.
Okay.
They were just convening more people than anyone in the world around the discussion around purpose and investments, the intersection of money and meaning. And Bob Caruso, who's the chairman, and he and I are partners in all of this. He had been an investor in Snowden. He had had invested in a number of things that I was working on in the past, and there was an opportunity based on the interest of the founders of SOCAP to sell the event space, and Bob and I got together and thought, what a great opportunity to work with the founders and the leadership team to take what had been built for 10 years that has really been a meeting place for the industry and all that has been developed, and apply our business skills to what we think is just the beginning of the changing of the capital markets.
Okay, interesting. So for people that haven't heard of SOCAP, and you quickly kind of talked about it, but like what exactly do you guys kind of do, and why do you think it's so important?
Well, we know from our children, from what we read, from data, from the ills of the past, that people want more from their investments, want more from their businesses than just the financial return and only 100% shareholder focus. We know that successful companies, when they look at what their stakeholders are, that the old company only focused on their shareholders.
Okay.
But we know that successful companies today look at the communities in which they work, their consumers, their employees, the footprint they leave on the world, are other stakeholders that they should think about when running their business. SOCAP is an event, a 3-day event that brings the best practitioners together in this field with the most curious learners, as well as investors and entrepreneurs, and one big Lollapalooza of good business. And that's why we call it, it's at the intersection of money and meaning. And that's what SOCAP is. It's been going for 10 years, and it has 3 days of events, about 250 tracks that have panels of 3 or 4 people, aside from all of the wonderful social events all around it.
No, I think that's really great. So what types of stuff do you guys kind of cover? Because I get that, like the social side and whatnot, but just for people to fully understand, what types of stuff or tracks do you guys kind of have at the event?
Well, this past year, we had some just really wonderful tracks, and Lindsay Smalling, who is responsible for SOCAP, does such an amazing job bringing it all together. The major tracks this past year was the racial equity track, and that was a great success. We had a climate change track. We had a neighborhood economics track.
Okay.
We had a sustainable livelihoods track. We had the UN very involved with, we called it Beyond Aid and achieving the development goals. And then we also had a good capital project track, which is about kind of the capital markets and investing.
Okay.
So those are some examples of we had a meaning track, a lot of things on mindfulness and in the workplace. So we would bring the different content providers around those tracks, and we had some great sponsors that got behind some of those and really helped people decide, what they wanted to get out of that 3-day conference.
Sure. And what's the date that's going to be happening this year in 2018?
October 26th, that third week of October. It's we're actively, if you go to our SOCAP 18 website, you'll see tickets are selling and the content is coming together, and
okay.
I'm sure it'll be a record year. Again, last year was a record, and I'm sure because of the marketplace, it will just keep growing, and it's really fun.
Sure, and it's in San Francisco at the Fort Mason Center for Arts and Culture. I've never been to your event before, but I've been to that kind of area, and that's a beautiful area that you guys are kind of hosting this event.
Well, you're coming this year, right?
I'm hoping. That's the plan.
Come.
That's the plan.
You need to have a few interviews there. You need to have some fun. And if you're going to build the future, Kevin, you have to do it through the lens of all of what's going on at SOCAP. So we need you. This is a formal invitation.
All right. Well,
you're coming to SOCAP.
All right,
2018.
We will figure that out. So just for people again, October 23rd to the 26th, kind of in San Francisco. Socialcapitalmarkets.net is the website where they can get more information. And I think what you guys are doing with that is actually really cool. And we'll kind of talk more about that as the show kind of goes on. But you touched on kind of the Good Capital Project. It's kind of, like you said, kind of part of SOCAP. But what exactly is the Good Capital Project? And why did you guys decide, to kind of do that as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think this is something that I find really exciting because the generation that could be the greatest generation ever, the millennials.
Okay, interesting. Sorry, why do you say that? Just out of curiosity, because I'm a millennial, 35, and I think we're basically pigeonholed as like the slacker, lazy kind of. Which I love because the bar's so low, but I'm curious to know why you say that.
Well, I don't know a lot of slacker, lazy millennials.
Okay, interesting.
I am so I'm biased by my experiences, and I would rather work with millennials than any other stage of demographics. I think the ability to process, the ability to understand communication, the recognition of change going on, the healthy cynicism that the millennials have, and the commitment to align their interests with their consumption, their career, and their opinions, I think is the opportunity the millennials have to be the greatest generation, maybe the most important generation, because you're also coupled with having the most advanced technologies at your disposal that give more power to an individual than might have been given to countries when I was a young boy. And so therefore, the values that you develop as a generation will drive the kind of social norms of what is acceptable.
Interesting.
And that will allow you to either use the amazing technologies that can take society into a whole new level, to bring an even better world than we live in today, or to take us into a level of anarchy and chaos and destruction. That's your call.
Sure.
Like, you all can do it. Your radio show can take care of that.
Sure.
You're going to build the future, or you're going to tear it apart.
Yeah,
I'm betting on the greatest generation in the history of the world coming out of your listeners.
Interesting. Well, I hope so. I guess I'm trying to do my small part to make, promote kind of people like yourself that are actually being involved in the change and helping people, kind of fund some of this stuff and put on these kind of conferences and events that people can actually, go to and meet the right people and get money and all that fun stuff. But back to kind of the Good Capital Project, I took us on kind of a tangent there, but what exactly kind of is it, and what are you guys doing with that? Because I think it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we came in and kind of got involved with SOCAP,
okay,
we thought SOCAP as a great brand we could have everywhere. It could change everything because it had that passion. But then we realized part of that passion is about startups, is about meaning, is about community, and it might not be about all aspects of the capital markets, of investment banking or wealth management. But without the flow of capital, you can't change the world as quickly as you can with it. And probably the financial services industry is one of the more, it has probably changed the least of any other major industry. And, but the consumers, the women and the millennials, which are increasingly the majority of decision makers,
interesting,
are wanting a different set of approaches. So we felt the way to address this with the passion and the impact experience that had been developed through SOCAP for the last 10 years, all of that content, all that expertise that has been a soapbox to communicate a better world. How can we use that to influence the capital markets? And we said, let's create the Good Capital Project. Let's borrow from your coast, the West Coast, design thinking methodologies.
Okay.
Because Wall Street doesn't use design thinking. It uses the smartest guy in the room, rules.
Interesting.
And makes the decision. Historically, it's changing. Okay. But design thinking allows for all ideas and allows for a full process of understanding all the stakeholders. So let's address design thinking to all the stakeholders in the capital markets and look at what we can do to affect more capital going into better outcomes than would otherwise, and use Good Capital Project as a brand to really focus on the capital markets. And so we launched that in June, had all the major banks there, major pension funds, entrepreneurs, foundations, UN, World Bank, plus all kind of demographics of people, broke up that group into 6 different groups the majority of the day to ask a lot of questions. How could we get more capital to solve more problems, to have the capital markets be able to meet the human needs of tomorrow as quickly as possible. And that created 1,800 different questions across 6 different big challenges that we posted. And then we spent 3 or 4 months having work sessions around those 6 grand challenges to lead it into what are some of the tangible things that we can actually do in the next 2 years or 18 months that can move the dime by working with a collective audience that we have throughout SOCAP and the Good Capital Project and the different things we do. So that's what the Good Capital Project is. It's a change management project for the capital markets to make it more relevant to both the consumers of the future and how money is utilized for better outcomes, and also to change some of the industry for the better.
I think that's really great. So you kind of touched on it, but I want to dive maybe a little bit deeper. Like, you guys it's kind of a huge goal that I think is attainable and needs to be kind of worked towards. But how do you guys kind of bridge all those types of people in those kind of verticals to actually make this happen in 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot. We're not the only ones. There's a lot of associations, and this isn't like we don't have the corner on good ideas or the vision.
Okay.
What we do have is the experience of both the old and the new. And we see, remember my early training of going around in all the different areas of the firm.
Right.
What a lot of the impact space really doesn't have is an understanding of all the different functions in the capital markets. And so there's people that have really good intentions that get stuck in just solving the problem, but don't know how to be scalable in getting capital or structuring their company in a way that can accept capital. Or there are research providers who may research this, but don't know how to maybe have a broader impact on research to more users, so it becomes the norm on how people look at things. Or there could be clients who don't have a framework to invest within, so they know how they want to invest in water problems, how they want to invest in gender equity, or how they want to invest in a refugee issue next to the stock they own or the bond they own. So there's not those frameworks of advice that advisors can talk to their clients. So what happens is everything gets really fragmented.
Right.
And there's a lot of good efforts that are not scaled. And then there's this huge capital markets that just keeps working the same way it always did. And they don't connect. So the reason we think we can do this is just design thinking, is breaking down the silos, is getting smart people. I mean, and when I say the capital markets doing the same thing, there's really good people. And the capital market, the industry of financial services, they would love to shift their whole firm to be completely more purpose-driven. They know that the future employees and clients, millennials, would flock into their firm if they could. But the silos have to be broken down. People have to share their knowledge, and we have to look on how to institutionalize it. So the Good Capital Project is in a small way doing that through different events, different things we write about, different initiatives we have. And we hope, and so is, there's other associations doing that. There's other efforts, and we're doing it in this new shared economy that all you millennials only know. You live in this shared economy. That's your best practice. That's the way of the world. The 700,000 co-working spaces now in the U.S. Like, that is the way of the future.
Sure.
So we need to fit this into that construct. And that's what, we want to do that through we've done this Good Capital Project around, in a design approach around the capital markets. So we want to do it in cities and bring city decision makers together. We want to do it with the UN. We're looking at doing it with some of the different country efforts.
Wow.
So it's just getting groups together with a view of how do you structure your city, your industry, to align better with the needs of the community or the company with the interest of capital to do good.
Interesting. So I'm curious then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is basically you're trying to bring people from kind of all walks of life and experience kind of just together to solve kind of big problems. Is that kind of a really simple way to put it?
Yeah, that would be called, that's a beautiful description, which I would say is what we hope the future of capital markets is.
Okay.
That people from all walks of life come together to solve big problems.
Sure.
I would love that to be the New York Stock Exchange or all capital markets. Wouldn't that be great if that's what the capital markets was? In order to do that, we've got to get a lot of people who know those mechanics that can start to challenge those frameworks so it does lead to people of all walks of life. In order to change those mechanics, we do have to also talk to people of all walks of life on what their user interface would want to be to do that.
Okay.
So this is all very lofty. We're that's the mission. There's a lot of starting points. One of the outputs of the Good Capital Project is to launch, which we will be announcing shortly with a major university in a couple weeks at our next conference, will be a major Impact University Challenge. And we hope to introduce to universities the opportunity for their students to create teams like March Madness, create their own team of impact investors that we will give examples of clients that they will create a portfolio across all asset classes that investment portfolio would help society, but also give the returns of that client. Now we have them compete against each other. We're on different challenges, of which we will invite the top 5 regionally to present in front of hopefully a bunch of future both employers and maybe even all walks of life to hear how they're doing it. And then they will go to the national effort and at our conferences like SOCAP and others and say, this is how we put this together and why. Through this portfolio, we can change this many things socially. We can also give its owners this type of return. Now, all of a sudden, those students are becoming the teachers of the current corporations. They will be hired very quickly because they will do it. This great generation potential that you have will be able to shine, and it'll be an on-ramp to the best practices in investment advice.
Sure. Yeah, interesting, right? And even if they don't necessarily win, just the experience they gather is hugely valuable to a company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I took one course that I remember at Bucknell. It was portfolio management.
Okay.
I was given the ability to go and do the research and put a portfolio together for $1 million. Well, surprise, surprise. I remember that, and I became a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. It affected me very positively. I want to see the opportunity for all the future leaders to be able to build portfolios of all asset classes, of stocks and bonds and cash and real estate and so forth, and do it in a way that they're choosing to buy, environmentally friendly investments, ones that they have a good understanding of the supply chains of the companies, ones that are actually solving problems, not creating them. And if we can do that with your generation, it's going to have its impact on the financial industry. Another thing that we're doing is there are 600,000 advisors of wealth in America. They're the insurance people, they're the wealth advisors, they're the brokers. Their average age is like 55 years old.
Okay.
Their average clients are 5 years older than them.
I got you.
They're mostly old white guys, basically, that have grown up in the industry. They've been serving their clients the way they've always served. Some of them are very innovative, but they are used to doing the things they've always done. There is a shortage of people coming in to the advice business from your generation.
Okay.
And a lot of people say it's because of the robo-advisory and so forth, but as your generation gets this massive historical amount of money come to its plate, and also as the economy starts to pick up because you all have children and you start consuming things and all of that, you're going to have a lot of wealth and you're going to need advisors. You have a shortage of people from your generation going into it.
Interesting.
Because they don't connect to the way it's always been done.
Sure.
So
it feels probably broken, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it feels broken.
Okay.
It's like the brands aren't as strong as they were.
Sure.
It's not dynamic, but it needs to be reinvented to engage your generation. Well, we have to start with the people that are there right now, because they're going to be there probably for another 10 years. So we're launching Total Impact conferences.
Okay.
For the current advisors. And so we can show them equity, stocks, all asset classes, show them the numbers that are going on, how big a growth market this is. And they may be missing out on it. So we want to meet them with the knowledge they have and be an on-ramp for them to learn and to say, maybe I need to I need to bring some younger people onto my team. I need to change the way I do business. I need to adjust, and I need to address the interests of the women and the millennials that are making all of the decisions. And I need to start shifting the way my practice is. That's a ridiculous $18 trillion of money in high net worth pockets in America. And when the ridiculous amount of money changes hands in the next 10 years to your generation, are people ready to advise on that? And so we want to meet the current people where they are through the Total Impact conferences, which our first one will be in Philly this month, April 26th and 27th. And we want to work with the future leaders of people coming out of university. And we want to do a lot of things to connect the two of those things.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you're going to do more kind of Total Impact conferences throughout the rest of the year. Is that fair to say?
That's right. So we haven't booked, but the first week of October we'll do one in Boston.
Okay.
At the end of the year we'll do a third city. We'll repeat all of those next year, and we hope to add 3 or 4 more. So we intend to have 5 to 7 in major cities around in 2019.
Wow.
As an outreach to investors, and we intend to have a number of universities involved in the Impact Challenge, that will roll out over the next 2 or 3 years. So it's really exciting. That's all on the wealth management side, the investor side.
Sure.
The other side is how you structure money around entrepreneurs and businesses. In financial services, that's called the origination side, and the species that serve that are investment bankers.
Okay.
That also needs to undergo change. And there is a new approach that people are seeing that's coming out of foundations and development organizations like the UN in entrepreneurs, called blended finance, which blends both donation money and investment money to help get things started that might not be as investable. And so that's a third initiative coming out of Good Capital Project, which is the blended finance program, which we're launching training in different education tracks, and we'll kind of put that into all that we're doing and get behind that shift to blended finance, which we think is a better approach to investment banking being developed in this blended finance area. So that's 3 examples of what's coming out of the Good Capital Project.
Sure. And I guess for people that want kind of more information, either on the Good Capital Project or the upcoming kind of Total Impact events, they can go to goodcapitalproject.com. You guys got tons of stuff on there. I do want to cover a few other things, because you guys are involved in some more fun stuff too that I think is really innovative. What exactly is intentional media? Because you're managing partner. What are you guys kind of doing with that? Because you guys are doing a ton of stuff. Well,
we start off with SOCAP, but then we realized the other things we were going to do, we didn't want to dilute the brand of SOCAP.
Got you.
And so we went to Good Capital Project and started that, and that's a different brand. We've also bought Conscious Company Media out of Boulder, which is, if you go to consciouscompanymedia.com and you see their magazine, it's a fantastic magazine on leaders of companies, and really that's the focus on very purpose-driven company CEOs and leaders and employees. And they are having events like the Conscious Company Leaders Forum, and that is in the Redwoods in June, and they just had a Women's Leaders Forum. So so those brands we have put under the holding company of Intentional Media, which is our holding company for the different brands that could meet entrepreneurs and meet company leaders and meet the capital markets, and really start to infect the intentionality of what people want to do and how they want to spend their money, how they want to work, how they want to consume, and how they want to save, in different brands that can focus on those issues and be very, very committed to those issues. But we can also take issues that we can sprinkle across those brands.
Sure.
That might be more of a movement. An example of that is we've launched the Year of Women campaign, which is just touching all of the different events across all of those areas, but also we're partnering with a whole bunch of other different brands on the empowerment of women, across these different dimensions. So that's what Intentional Media is. It's a media company that embraces these different brands for finding different mechanisms to change people's behavior, to be prepared for building the future ahead of us that we all want, and instead of it being an accident on what we end up with. So, betting on your generation being the best generation in history, to us, is also embedding on Intentional Media to actually have the view that you can be intentional about where you are trying to build the future.
Sure. Yeah, and I actually had Megan from Conscious Company on the show a couple of months ago where we talked kind of about her launching that kind of magazine and getting the CEO of Whole Foods kind of on their first cover. And then we talked about the women event that you guys ran in February. Yeah. And I know you guys are doing more. And,
it wasn't you guys. It wasn't you guys. It was definitely women who ran it, and it was all women.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
And we are very proud of the women leadership we have in our organization, and the majority of the organization being women. And we, the opportunity that Megan is providing with that magazine.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch kind of just the last, even since I kind of met her earlier in the year, and just kind of following all the fun stuff that they're doing as well is been really cool, just kind of from the outside, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's fun for us. We feel like we're on the outside because she's so good. We really haven't, we just let her do her thing, which is she's extremely dynamic and very focused, and she's an inspiration.
Totally. So you guys also have this SOCAP 365, which I think is kind of much needed. But what exactly is SOCAP 365, and why did you guys decide to kind of build this SOCAP 365?
Well, under Lindsay Smalling, and she has someone named Liz Maxwell who was tireless at getting the message of SOCAP into different city and places around different events. So this is taking that annual event and bringing it down to the neighborhoods. And she's had about 15 events so far this year.
Wow.
Along some of those tracks and themes, and bringing it into the city to create a dialogue and making it more accessible for people to come in for a 2 or 3 hour session on one issue. And that also extends the SOCAP annual message, but also informs us and brings information back along with all of the other brands. The nice thing is all these brands are not siloed. We're all very connected and very collective in our mission.
Okay, interesting. So how does it kind of work? Like, can I buy tickets to these? Is it invite only?
Yeah.
How does it kind of work?
Yeah, you can buy tickets and they're very affordable.
Okay.
And they're usually sold out. So if you go to SOCAP 365, but I think they just launched their website. You have to Google it because I can't remember the exact domain. But they will have their events, and they pretty much sell out soon because it's really about being accessible to those who want to be there. And like they're $10 or $15 or $20 for the session, and it's a great way to meet people, but also get your opinion out there. And so that's the role of SOCAP 365, and I think we'll continue to use that to really grow it to get more and more into the community with SOCAP 365.
Sure. And just for people, I'm just looking at the site right now. You guys just did one in San Francisco and Philadelphia and Seattle and New York and Washington, D.C. So you guys are kind of spreading these out kind of across the country a little bit, at least coastal. And so I think like majority of people can easily get to kind of one coast or the other, I think, for the most part with, like a few hour flight or maybe a couple hour drive, right? Is that fair to say? That's kind of the plan?
Yeah, this is really to meet people where they are. So we wouldn't see people, because this is typically, an afternoon or a morning. It's not a multiple day event like SOCAP or Total Impact Conferences. It's more of an issue-based effort, and it's more if you felt that you were in a city that could really use a discussion around X, and that might transport it to a broader stage of SOCAP in San Francisco, reach out to Liz Maxwell and say, we'd love to get this dialogue going in New Orleans or Houston or whatever. We'd love to do a SOCAP 365 discussion around this in our city.
Sure. Well, and I also think like you guys have people posting kind of articles around some of these kind of big like issues, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What types of stuff do you like to cover, or are you guys maybe looking for at some of these upcoming events, just to get people thinking if they do want to reach out to you and say, I have an idea for this?
Well, we, along the lines, it's important. Inclusion is very important to us.
Okay.
Gender equity is very important to us. We going back to inclusion, it's both women inclusion, it's racial inclusion, the financial inclusion aspect of that. And we believe, the whole genesis of SOCAP is getting rid of the two-pocket thinking. There's one pocket for philanthropy and one pocket for investing. We think you combine the two and you have much better outcomes.
Interesting.
So we think that the issues of our time, whether it be people need more meaning in what they're doing and more mindfulness, there's often a need for more racial equity, there's gender equality, but we want to link business approaches to that. We want to link what are the best practices in the capital market. So we are focused more on what are the solutions and what are the creative approaches to this. There are some cities that are doing amazing things. So like in our Philadelphia conference, day one is about investment. Day two is about the successes in Philadelphia in the backyard of these advisors on sustainable investment. So when we go to Boston, day one will be about investments. Day two will be what are the solutions that are creatively happening in Boston for those advisors to learn and others to learn.
Gotcha.
So 365 is an outreach to look at some of those issues, and the big stage is SOCAP in San Francisco.
Sure.
But we're going to keep looking for magazines and media and different approaches to broaden this discussion. And so whether it's capital markets, it would be probably come to a Good Capital Project, and we'd love people to join in our newsletter just so we know they have an interest in this. SOCAP, I'd go to their info site and reach out to SOCAP, same with 365. If you're a corporation or business that really wants to either adopt or show how you're exemplifying mindfulness and consciousness and how it's resulting in better results, to reach out to Conscious Company Media. And if you're confused, reach out to any of them, because we're all work together.
No, I think that's great. To be honest, like, I think we just kind of scratched the surface on kind of all the stuff you're doing with kind of all the different brands and events and whatnot. And we are sadly coming to the end of the show.
Yeah.
And so I think just kind of, I'll rattle off maybe a couple domains just because I have them up in front of me. And then if I'm missing any or something else, please fill that in at the end. Does that sound cool?
That's great.
Perfect. So for SOCAP 18 in San Francisco, that's October 23rd to the 26th, it's socialcapitalmarkets.net. Just how it's out, like you spell it properly. It's, SOCIALCAPITALMARKETS.net. There's also links on there under kind of all events to the SOCAP 365, the Good Capital Project, Conscious Company. But if people want, they can go to thegoodcapitalproject.com. Again, it's GOODCAPITALPROJECT.com. And then if they want for the SOCAP 365, it's the socialcapitalmarkets.net/SOCAP, and then the numbers 365. And then Conscious Company is just Conscious Company Media, and it's IOUS, and then just companymedia.com. And then obviously you guys are kind of on all the social channels. I think it's probably easier if they just kind of Google that or they're linked from those websites. Unless you want to mention any other kind of links or anything else, what do you think? Is there anything else you want to mention that I missed?
No, the only our interest is, as you're building the future, is to help you make the millennials the greatest generation in history. And so if anyone has ways that we can help with that, that's what we're interested in.
Perfect, John. Well, I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on the show, and look forward to keeping in touch with you and, coming down to San Francisco at the kind of end of October for SOCAP 18.
Great. Come to the East Coast and play with it. Give it a little disruption when you get a chance.
I would love that as well. All right, John, you have a good rest of your day,
okay.
And we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. Also check us out on Facebook at Building the Future Show and follow us on Twitter at Building Show. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.